Here now is Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells with Talk to Tom, sponsored by Greenway Dodge.
Welcome to Talk to Tom. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells, and this week we're going high tech at Lockheed Martin. Now that I'm up and clearing the mountains, I want to introduce you guys to Chris Mattel. I'm not really flying. It's a simulator. Chris, talk to me. What is your title? You're the program director?
So I'm the engineering program manager of the Prepared program.
How did you guys come up with the name Prepared? When you look at it, it's kind of graphically displayed differently than just Prepared. It's like Prepared 3D. It's
Correct.
the first thing that occurs in it. When
Correct. So
you're
Prepared came from a actually employee voting contest. The product was developed around 12 years ago, and so we did vote in on what the name would be, and it was selected because the primary purpose of this product is to prepare pilots, prepared people for flight.
Okay. So now we're high above Honolulu in the clouds. How is this used? I mean, obviously I'm playing with it, just goofing around like as if I'm at the house on my laptop or something. But how is this used? Do people use this for what? The government, obviously, this is what this is for.
So it's across the board. So what's unique about this product, it's commercially available. So we have people using it from F-35 pilots, learning about the aircraft, learning about the cockpit, to a private pilot who's learning to fly for the first time. I think one of the interesting things about the product too is a lot of schools use it for STEM activities.
Oh,
so
do they?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a lab at the Orlando Science Center where that's populated by Prepared. So students can learn about aerodynamics, learn about planes, and me personally, it helps them get them engaged in aeronautics and engineering and maybe become part of our team someday.
That's incredible. Okay, you say pilots use it, obviously too, for different situations. Like right now, I'm at about, how high am I?
So right now you're about 5,000 feet.
5,000 feet up above
slowly.
Honolulu.
Correct.
And I see off to my left-hand side as I'm coming out of the cloud bank here, I see ground.
Yes.
Okay, how did you train pilots, and is it mostly, who flies the F-35? Is that the Air Force, Army? Who is that? Is it both, all?
So the F-35 is a unique product. It's the Joint Strike Fighter, so it's the same aircraft that's used across different services as well as different countries. So there's different variants of the aircraft, one for the Air Force, one for the Marine Corps, and one for the Navy.
Okay.
And you're flying the Air Force variant here today.
Awesome.
But they're all very similar.
Look, you can see the land. I got to straighten this up. I see the coastal zones around Honolulu. I'm just having a blast.
There you go. If you follow the coastline to the right, you might be able to fly over Waikiki Beach.
Oh, now we're in the clear.
There you go, clear the skies. So what you see here is we have different weather patterns within the application, within the software.
That was going to be my next question.
Yep.
Because we have so much lightning here in Florida. I'm fascinated by it all the time. And it's my biggest, is that Waikiki?
No, I think you got to keep going around.
Okay, see, I don't know Hawaii very well at all. My dad was stationed there, my sister was born there, but I've never been. But let's talk about lightning.
Yes.
Let's talk about lightning. How do you simulate the lightning in here? Does it do like this rain is doing? Is it truly legit look like lightning?
It absolutely does. We have cloud-to-cloud lightning and cloud-to-ground lightning. What's interesting about actual aircraft, people often fear lightning and think it's dangerous. It really has almost no impact to the plane. I know it surprises people because they're at MCO waiting for the plane takeoff and it's shut down because there's a thunderstorm. That's all about the people on the ground. The plane and the crew, perfectly fine. The problem with lightning is it usually involves a storm, and then within a storm you have a lot of downdrafts, you have winds, you have more turbulence, so those are items that you want to avoid. But the actual lightning hitting an aircraft is quite common, but not a big deal.
I tell people that all the time. I have a PowerPoint, which compared to this is ancient. But I tell people that all the time, that the aircraft is built with the shell. It hits and goes around the shell, normally goes right out the back.
Absolutely. It will be loud and it will be bright, so it's no different than if you get a lightning strike near your home. You're going to hear it and see it. The pilots will go through a standard procedure to make sure all their electronics are working, because that's the most likely fault is it shorts out some of the electronics. They'll go through procedures, which we could simulate completely unprepared, and if everything's good to go, they continue on their flight, and then when the plane lands, they'll do an inspection on the actual aircraft. Okay,
talk to me about other weather-related disasters. Obviously, I stress about high wind, hurricanes, lightning.
Right.
And I talk about sun cancer, what I call sun cancer, for your skin cancer caused by sun damage. But what other weather-related disasters can this do? It doesn't just do atmospheric stuff, it does oceanography stuff too, right?
It does, has a full model on the wave patterns. We also, one of the components in the adjacent markets we hit in is wildfires. Wildfires have been a big problem out west. We have the ability to insert wildfires into the simulation software that are actually based on location and based on the wind conditions, they'll transition and grow. And then you could fly a C-130 and drop retardant on the actual fires and see how it reacts. And
Okay.
So you could actually train in a real environment where you're pulling real fire data, dropping retardant, and seeing what the reactions are.
Awesome.
Understanding the wind dynamics and stuff of how it's going to be impacted.
Okay, that kind of leads to my next question, because obviously this is military. I'm in an F-35. I'm in a battle aircraft.
Correct.
This is where you encounter the enemy. But you guys do all kinds of other training too. As you were just mentioning, if you're training C-130, that's a big plane
Correct.
that drops everything. Do you do this kind of programming, the prepared, would like airlines use this or who?
Yep. So we have airlines who've used in the past. We have students who are learning to fly the first time, flying like a Cessna 172. It really is we call it a visual simulation platform because it supports all the different domains. It actually supports ground vehicles. You could drive cars in it or tanks as well as ships. So what we do is we create this virtual world that you're flying through, and you just happen to be utilizing a F-35 model that you're flying, but you could be using a 737. We actually have a large market within the commercial community, the private community, where people always want to be a 737 pilot, and they're flying a 737 model using the prepared software.
Okay, I got down pretty low there, about 300 feet or 3,000 feet. How low was I?
You're just under 200 feet, I believe.
So I got low.
Yep, you got pretty low.
Oh, that's pretty scary. Talk to me about the future of this thing. Where do we go from here? I mean, this looks pretty legit, but can it get better?
Yes. So I mean, what you're flying here is a what I'll call a notional F-35 model. So you're not flying the actual F-35 model that F-35 pilots would fly.
Oh, really? Because it feels like I am.
It's close. It's close. But obviously, there's some material in there that's not publicly disclosed that we want to keep. So we do have F-35 pilots who fly a slightly different model. Look and feel, what you're seeing on your gauges in front of you are similar, but the dynamics and the feel might be slightly different. We continue to expand capabilities. We have a scenario creation tool, so you can create different scenarios for anything that you could imagine. Like I mentioned, the fire and the wildfire is something relatively new that we started an attack. Now we're looking at some other ground-based training. And something else that's kind of cool with this as well is you could interact with other players, so it's a multiplayer capability. So we could have 4 of these set up, and you guys are all flying in the same scenario with each other in formation. So you could basically learn to be the Thunderbirds or the Blue Angels flying together, all using different instances of prepared.
Okay, so you grew up wanting to do this, or did you want to be a military man, or what did you want to do?
So I grew up in Central Florida. Wanted to be an astronaut. That was always my dream, to be an astronaut, living close to the Space Coast.
Yeah.
I think in 7th grade I went to space camp, and I thought, this is it. This is what I'm going to do.
Where was space camp?
Space camp was at Cape Canaveral
at
the Kennedy Space Center. I don't think they have it there anymore now. It's just in Huntsville. But had a lot of passion about planes. I always go to air shows and stuff like that when they were in town. So it was either going to be an astronaut or a fighter pilot. Neither one of those were really in the cards for me at the end of the day. Went to school for computer science here at UCF, and knew I wanted to do software, and I wanted to do software that made a difference, and had a passion for the military and the people who serve, and wanted to get it close to that to help them safety-wise and kind of come home with their family and be a part of that mission. And with a product like this, I'm able to work with pilots on a daily basis, talk to them about how it helps them get their stories, hear their stories of what it's like to be Maverick and Goose, and enjoy a coffee and stuff with them, talking about the technologies that we develop and how we can help them improve.
You went to school at UCF, you said?
Yes.
Did you get a graduate degree?
I got an undergrad at UCF in computer science, and then went to University of Florida to get a graduate degree.
So who do you pull for when the Gators play the Knights?
I'm all Knights. I'm not a fan of the Gators at all.
Oh, no.
No, zero passion for the Gators.
You were there 3 years, or 2 years? Or?
2 years.
But it didn't bite you?
Did not bite me at all, and apparently it rubbed off because my son is graduating high school this year, and we looked at all the state universities, and the first one he crossed off the list was the University of Florida.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I have a story about that when we're not on air, too. I raised 3 kids. I begged them all to go to Florida. Finally, the third one did. They all got accepted.
Yeah.
They all said no. Told them no. Okay, I'm at 400 feet now.
Yeah, 400 feet, getting closer to ground, around 340 now, kind of flying out level.
So what I'm looking for is the island. So
I think you have probably...
There it is.
Oh yeah, maybe you are. There you go. You're right. You know this better than I did. I thought
I don't.
I thought you were headed closer to California at this point.
Would it fly me all the way to California?
Yeah, that's cool about Prepared. Prepared is a worldwide globe. So within Prepared is you could take off from Heathrow Airport and land in MCO. And we have a lot of people who do that will actually sit in Prepared for 7 hours and do that flight in a 737 because they have that passion about being a pilot. They don't fast forward it. They do the full time of just sitting in the clouds, cruising for a while.
Okay, so you're saying I could buy this for my home laptop?
Yep. This is probably the only product that I'm aware of that Lockheed actually has commercially available through a website. So go to www.prepared.com. And we actually take credit card and different licenses based on different user sets and different sets of capability.
Well, this is like 800 times better than the old flight sim we used to have.
Interesting enough, this started from Microsoft Flight Sim 12 years ago. Yep. Wow. So we needed a product to start with, and instead of starting with a clean sheet of paper, we took the video game that they had and we turned it into a training tool and added a lot of the training capabilities that are necessary for.
Do they still do flight sim?
They have released a new flight sim product in the gaming market with the Xbox.
But it's not as good as this.
I would say not. I would say we're different. We're different ideas. They're more for entertainment purposes, and we're not for entertainment. We're for training. So we're looking at improving pilots, creating that real world environment at home.
Well, that's awesome. Is there anything I haven't asked you, Chris? Because I'm all distracted by looking for.
I think when you mentioned when we mentioned about flying around the globe. It does have the entire globe. Within that globe, there's over 24,000 airports that are all accurately mapped to FAA data.
So you got them all?
All 24,000 plus. Everything from a small little dirt runway in Alaska where you're going to use a little bush plane to land.
Awesome.
We use all accurate street data, so the streets are where the streets are, the coastlines are where the coastlines are, everything from utility poles. So when you're flying this, the expectation is if you're using a particular road for a visual flight rule as you're flying, in the simulator, when you're flying the airplane over Atlanta, you get the same idea. So completely about immersion, and the device you're sitting in here is a lower end kind of item where you're sitting at a simulated touchscreen cockpit. We have other devices.
So I can touch this and it
yep,
would work?
all touch screen, similar to what's in the aircraft. This could be built out in a dome where you're completely sitting within screens. And then really the push most recently is virtual reality and mixed reality. So you could actually put on a headset and turn your head around and look behind you, look up in the cockpit in virtual reality mode, and take it a step further, mixed reality, where you could actually touch physical buttons, but when you look out of what you would be thinking looking out the cockpit, you see the virtual world. Great immersion. You'll find people who are training in this for a couple hours during their mission. It's something complex, and they'll come out sweating and worked up because they had an engine failure that they had to train for, or during takeoff they had a flock of birds and they had an engine go out and had to determine how they're going to land back.
Land it, put it on the river like Sully.
Yep.
What are you? Last question, and we'll wrap this up. Are you not ever going to become a pilot yourself? You do this all the time. I mean, I'm sitting here getting the bug right now. I'm sitting here questioning my life, like, wow, I should have been a pilot. This is so much fun. And you had a passion for it. Are you not going to go back and get your license?
I keep going back and forth. Now that my kids are getting a bit older, I'm thinking about spending the time to get a private pilot's license. Interesting enough, we had someone on our team who worked prepared, and a few years after working the program, he went into a local pilot school at Executive Airport over here and got his own private pilot license. So he got the passion from doing exactly what you're saying. He got the license.
It's incredible.
Fortunately, he's in a different stage of his life where it's a little easier and the commitments and stuff. But
well, allegedly, don't they make pilots retire at like 62 or 63?
I was at a military conference recently, and Canada will now take pilots up to 35 years old for your starting as a pilot. A brand new pilot they'll take. The U.S. is much lower age than that. But man, if I knew that a little bit earlier, I could have been a Canadian pilot, got dual citizenship.
Where's land? Did I lose it?
Yep, you're dropping, so you'll come below the clouds in a minute.
I'm trying to get below the cloud deck. There we go. There's the island.
And what you're doing is just kind of free flight. It's a lot of fun. But like I mentioned, we could create scenarios. So you're flying a particular mission where you're having to find a particular point, dodge things. We could add other entities in the air, other aircraft.
Too low. Get up top. Get up top.
We have you set up not to crash, so.
Oh, do you think
you'll be okay? You'll bounce off the mountain and keep going.
Yeah, but I don't want to do that.
But this has been really important within our community, just because flying is very expensive.
Right.
This is cheaper. It's safer. You don't want to practice an engine failure
In a
real plane, but you want to be ready for it happen, prepared when it happens. And so this gives you that opportunity to do that.
Yeah, like if my engine went out, what do you do?
There's a whole procedure you go through.
Push button, pull.
Push buttons, switch
over
things,
to
turn
one
things
engine?
off. Engine fire will be one different procedure to get that engine going. If you're a single engine, it's a different kind of situation.
Okay.
But typically, if you have any problems in the air, you want to get to the ground as soon as you can, as safely as you can.
Can we land this thing? Can I put it on autopilot and let it land? Or can it get me close, or what do I do?
I think we have now transitioned quite far from the runway.
Oh, yeah.
You could try to do a simulated crash landing on the water if you like.
Chris, you're trying to make me stick like a dart.
No, you're good. You're good. You're still 200, 160
Feet.
feet. There you go, 190.
40 feet. Get your nose up. Get your nose up. Get your
There you go,
nose
20,
up. Get your nose up.
15, 10, air, splash.
Am I down?
You're down.
I feel like Sully. I landed right
There
on
you
the
go.
water.
There you
Didn't
go.
lose my plane.
Safe.
Thank you, Chris.
It's been a pleasure.
It was awesome. I gotta learn to fly. So remember, if you have a question you'd like for us to answer here on Talk to Tom, just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. And you can download our podcast from wherever you listen to your podcast. And please download the new 6 Plus app. It's free. I'll see you next week.